Good evening, folks. Here's your Wednesday update on our weekend winter storm potential. Let's talk about what has changed over the last 24 hours. Models have trended with the heaviest snow axis, notably to the north and west. Now, we've been talking about how this is not going to be a plain old snow event for us here locally in Hampton Roads and northeastern North Carolina, looking more like a mixed bag, a very sloppy storm system here affecting us this weekend, and icing becoming a pretty big concern as you move farther into the interior, closer to the I-95 corridor. We could be looking at several hours of freezing rain, leading to some pretty impressive ice accretion totals. I'll show you the model outputs on that in just a minute. And this still looks to be a long duration event, bringing long duration impacts starting Saturday evening, likely around or after sunset, lasting all the way to around sunrise Monday morning. All right, here's the setup right now. We've got the cold air being injected from the north, Arctic boundary itself pushing on through all the way to the deep south right now with some showers, reinforcing cold air off to the north. So that's going to be sitting and waiting for some Gulf moisture to ride up along that boundary and kick off our storm system. Main piece of energy here sitting off the coast of California. Yep, and that's the hurricane hunters running a recon mission to gather some data offshore there. We don't have any balloon observations, or really any ground obs out there, so this does a good job of getting some data to throw it into the computer models to get some more clarity as we go in time before it moves on land and we can get some better measurements there. But winter storm watches are up for a huge swath of the country, stretching all the way from the Mexico border all the way up through Kentucky, Tennessee, and the Carolinas, and even western Virginia right now. Does not include our area at this time, but I do expect it to be expanded off to the east, probably within the next 24 hours. And we may even see something called an ice storm warning get put up for areas along I-95 with a considerable chance of widespread freezing rain and highly impactful situation there into the weekend. So let's walk through the latest run of the models. We're going off the GFS as the afternoon run, the 18Z that is just updated. And it is a slightly colder, farther south scenario, but I will preface that with it is an outlier compared with all of the model guidance that we've seen pretty much today. GFS shows snow breaking on out late Saturday evening, likely around sunset. We get a good snow for a couple hours, picking up some accumulations. And then you see the pink there showing the sleet and freezing rain breaking on out as we get that warm nose to develop and lift north and northwest, possibly going all the way up along the peninsula up towards the Richmond area, keeping it all snow northern Virginia and points north of there, plain old rain off to the south. Now, this particular run of the GFS does show a secondary area of low pressure developing, and that could give us another tug of some colder air, maybe changing us back over to a period of snow pre-dawn on Monday. But again, this run of the GFS is a bit of an outlier. The European model here shows snow breaking on out again later on Saturday, snowing for a much shorter amount of time before we see a transition to sleet, freezing rain, and rain. You can see that line here moving all the way up into northern Virginia, right on the doorstep of D.C. So there could be some mixing issues all the way to the north there, according to the Euro. Back off to the south and east, plain old cold rain. Likely going to see a huge temperature contrast. We'll be in the 20s at the surface up along I-95 north of Richmond, and then in the 50s to near 60 down through the Outer Banks, dependent on the low track, according to the European here. That pulls away, but you see that pink shading all along the I-95 corridor. We got cold air damming, meaning all the cold air is locked in at the surface, nowhere for it to go, and that moisture falling into that sub-freezing air mass, and you get widespread icing conditions. Now, snowfall totals, according to the latest run of GFS and the Euro. Again, I told you the GFS is a colder scenario farther south, so we did see an increase in the forecast snowfall totals, double digits again. But again, the outlier right now, we could see this may be the start of a trend. We'll see. Euro, however, has backed off, seeing those heavier snow totals even north of Richmond for this weekend. But again, that's not the whole story. We're not going to see it fall as all snow. Now, those were the operational models that I just showed you. The ensembles of those models, meaning we're running that same model dozens of times, tweaking it ever so slightly to get a different outcome. The percentage of those ensembles that show now accumulating snows of 1, 3, 6, or 12 have all trended down today. However, the only caveat to that is the Euro AI is actually showing a bit of an increase in terms of the more modest snowfall totals, 1 inch or 3 inches, now up to 100% and 80% in 3 inches on the Euro AI. Let's talk about the ice accretion. This is the output from the GFS showing over 1/4 of an inch, and that's really all you need to cause some problems across a lot of the area, even as far east to the immediate ocean front out towards Virginia Beach, which is a little bit unusual with the maritime influence there. We'll keep temperatures probably above the freezing mark, but it's a possibility. And then we've got the European, which is much scarier. Okay, we've got the ice accretion amounts here that probably are overdone. Let's hope. but up and over an inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, and that would be highly impactful along the I-95 corridor. But notice it really has a sharp cutoff gradient as you move off to the east, closer to the water there, with the maritime influence keeping ground temperatures a little milder. All right, the ice impact potential, according to the Euro that I just showed you, has extreme impacts here. Richmond points south, 85-95 split heading into North Carolina this weekend. Now, we can kind of look at where that warm nose will set up. We talked about this yesterday, 850 millibar temperatures, 5,000 feet up, what the temperature looks like. This is the European rendition of it. We'll start things off Saturday evening at 7 p.m. post-sunset. You're going to look for that blue line. You can see it on the bottom of your screen there. That is the area that marks the freezing line. So we are well below freezing, 5,000 feet up Saturday evening. Whatever is falling will likely be snow at this point in time. But notice we go through the overnight. That line builds north quickly. By midnight, it's along the Virginia, North Carolina line. South of it, likely some sleet, ice, or maybe even rain as you see these temperatures really start to jump up, especially down in northeastern North Carolina. Just ahead of sunrise on Sunday, we're already pushing 40 in the mid-levels, still hanging on to 20, so all snow, maybe some sleet off towards Richmond. But even that freezing line lifts all the way north of Richmond, Fredericksburg, and towards D.C. by lunchtime on Sunday, and will likely be probably all rain in northeastern North Carolina and parts of Southside as well, according to the European model this particular run, and it stays quite mild in the mid-levels right on through Sunday evening. So your extended forecast after a couple warm days tomorrow and Friday at or above normal. We'll see the Arctic air intrude from the north. 18 to kick things off Saturday morning, likely not getting above the freezing mark. We do start to warm, however, with that warm nose developing as we get into late Saturday night, early Sunday, changing us over to a wintry mix, sleet, snow, freezing rain, and even some areas seeing plain old rain. And if we do get the backside of bringing some colder air, may end as a brief wintry mix early Monday morning before we turn cold for several days. Sunny, dry Tuesday and Wednesday.